thank you everyone for joining our session today on driving growth through product-led experiences. Excited to share some of our thinking and research on the topic with you. I'll cover a couple of quick housekeeping items and then introduce the group, and then we'll jump into it. Just for your awareness, I'm sure you guys are probably all well practiced at this by now, but as we go through, please feel free to put questions into chat. We'll come to the questions at the end, but we have set aside time at the end to talk through Q&A. So, feel free to put in the questions as we go through, and we'll come to them at the end. And the other thing is there are a couple of poll questions as we get into this, so they should be self-explanatory, but please, it'd be great for you to fill out the poll. So thank you. We've got three folks presenting today. I'm Jeremy Schneider, Senior Partner at McKinsey. I co-lead our global software and tech practice. Excited to share with you some of our thinking. And I have two of my colleagues with me here. Nina, who is an associate partner who focuses on go-to-market and software and has done a lot of work in and around this topic. And John, who is an engagement manager with us, working with Nina and I and doing a spectacular job. So we'll go through the material. So if we go to the first page, so just to introduce the topic here, this is we're going to focus today on product-led growth. I know this has probably some 2021 resonances for folks, but we'll explain both kind of the hype cycle and what we think is sort of the reality of PLG and where things are really netting out in terms of adding value to go to market. But just first, in terms of what we're actually talking about here, right? This is, started very much with the dream of a product that sells itself. But if you sort of click underneath that a little bit, what we're really talking about is a mindset shift to place the product at the center of the go-to-market motion. And that has a number of different implications to it, right? One is really enabling users and prospective customers to have seamless access to the product, both through some form of trial experience or the like, and usually with an element of self-service onboarding as well. Secondly, this implies a cross-functional go-to-market motion, really one that brings together in a much tighter way product, marketing, and sales. It means leveraging in that much more digital, both from the lens of digital discovery, usually through the web, as well as digital demand gen, usually through various organic marketing techniques. But it also fundamentally means working in a different way across these different functions in a much more tight-knit cross-functional team. Often that is instantiated in a growth team that is cross-functional and highly iterative, focused on optimizing against key PLG metrics like conversion, et cetera. The other piece, the other piece of the definition here is, obviously PLG often is very focused on driving an initial land with customers. So implied in that is also a real focus on expansion off of that initial base, which typically is highly automated and heavily leveraging usage data and other analytical elements, as well as in-product marketing, et cetera. So when we talk about PLG, this is sort of the locus of practices that we're talking about. And there's been an enormous amount of excitement, if we go to the next page, about this topic, right? Especially if you sort of look at the period from 2013 to 2021, there was an immense growth in the level of hype and the amount of value attached to product-led companies. If you just look at that period, you saw that, the PLG companies collectively drove about 59% annual growth in valuation. That is compared against the S&P 500, which grew 13% annually through that period. So, there was obviously an enormous amount of excitement and hype about the topic through that period. In many ways, 2021, marked the peak of the PLG hype cycle. And if you sort of look beyond 2021 and see, what's happened since then, you see a couple of things. First, obviously, many fewer PLG-oriented companies going public, but also a fall off in valuation, where PLG-oriented companies have seen a decrease in valuation of about 14% annually versus the S&P 500, which fell at about 10%. So a meaningful drop off. And obviously, some of this is just math, right? I mean, obviously, if you're driving a go-to-market motion that involves aggressive growth investment with the prospect of driving longer-term expansion and value, the simple math of increasing cost of capital is going to dramatically drive down valuation. But I think it raises a natural question of, okay, so given this, is PLG still relevant, is still important? And we're going to talk through our perspective on that today in some detail. But fundamentally, our view is that pure PLG has a role to play with a certain segment of the market. But what has much broader applicability is applying elements of PLG practices to a much wider swath of companies through what we call product-led sales. So what we see is this kind of convergence between pure PLG, which is completely self-serve, you discover the product, pay for it with a credit card, et cetera, and pure sales-led, which is sort of a traditional sales-driven go-to-market approach. We see those really converging into a model that combines some of the best of both, which we call product-led sales, which is fundamentally about leveraging product and digital to drive demand and to shorten sales cycles, while still having traditional sales play a role in the process. And in fact, we see even many traditional PLG companies really moving in this direction as they scale. And at some level, it's not surprising, because if you go and talk to enterprise software buyers, we find that a large majority of them, almost 2/3, say that the way that they want to be sold to, the way they want to discover and buy software, combines elements of both of these go-to-market motions. It's worth saying, oftentimes, this is often stratified by persona as well. So many of these companies will have an element of kind of more bottom-up sales motion focused on users or developers, which has more of a PLG emphasis to it, and then a more CIO or tech executive oriented sales motion, which is more top-down and has more elements of sales-led growth. But in both cases, typically, a hybrid go-to-market motion is very much what we see taking hold. So we'll talk through a little bit more about how we see this evolution and where we see things going. Let me hand over to Nina to walk you through that.
Thank you, Jeremy. So I think, as Jeremy said, we wanted to see a couple of things. It's like there is a hype that we can see in valuation, but is it really enough to be a product-led company and grow significantly more. So we took a look at all of the public companies, and we scanned through a lot of their tactics and whether they are deploying in significant part of their portfolio traditional product-led tactics such as transparent prices, try before you buy model, a lot of call to actions towards trials in their websites, and whether they are also declaring product-led as their own strategy. So we separated the world of the software into categories: companies that are declaring, and we are seeing that they are product-led, and companies that are much more traditional sales-led. And at the first, you see that actually there's significant growth. 50% practically, these companies product-led primarily grow 50% more than the traditional sales-led companies. But if we decompose this and we start saying, like, is that everyone that is doing product-led? Are they having this outweighed benefit? If we actually decompose this, then we see that there's a specific few that are deploying both of the elements of the traditional sales-led and product-led that outperform the market significantly. So we've separated the population in what you could say product-led performance, and I would say a couple of them: Datadog, Atlassian being in this first bucket where they are outperforming both their sales counterparts, but significantly also their counterparts in the product-led pack. And it's interesting because they are outperforming them while they're putting similar level of investments, both in marketing and sales and in R&D. So we're seeing this outweighed benefit when you are actually combining the elements of product-led growth and sales-led, like in a harmonious way, like those 11 companies, and seeing significant growth. If we try to distill, looking across the market, what are actually what these companies are doing well, and they have been 3 main points that we can, as always in McKinsey, that we can narrow this down. So the first thing is, we used to be talking about omni-channel. This is a true expression of omni-channel while during a customer journey. So a user and a buyer utilizes and experiences during their customer journey both product-led and sales-led components. And in order to actually get the most benefit out of the product-led experience, such as trials, for example, such as freemiums, there is always an introduction of a sales-led element, such as a technical sale or a BDR that comes into play and takes a problem, a user problem to a company problem, or helps you experience very much quicker the value of the product. Number 2, and I think Jeremy also mentioned it, this is not anymore, this cannot work well in a siloed organization. This is truly a own coordinated approach across product, marketing, and sales. And what we see the best-in-class companies doing on this front is actually compensating both product and marketing in growth results, especially the people that are working in these growth teams, and of course all of the flow. So this becomes a de facto breaking down the traditional silos between marketing, sales, and product, and everyone trying to optimize the end result. In the best examples that we have seen working with companies in this, we see marketing chasing the leads all the way down to conversion, just to make sure that this is actually and diagnosing the root causes, so that we can actually grow the business through all of the channels. And the last thing, which of course it's really a big unlock, and where we see a lot of the times companies failing, is you need to have visibility in the end-to-end performance in both the marketing, product, and sales side. And we see 2 failure modes that are like quite the opposite. One would be too much data that we do not know how to interpret it, and we cannot have actionable actions getting out of them, or too little data that we do not know where the funnel breaks. But having the ability to see end to end is a big unlock and allows both one and number two to be deployed properly. If we move to the next page, I want us to talk a bit along the flywheel and some of the key tactics that we see all of these functions coming together and playing along the funnel. If we first look at marketing will continue play in a PLG format, the traditional functions responsible for brand, responsible for field and event marketing. But one key element that is different in the function that marketing plays in a PLS company is that it really tries to optimize the sign-up experience, the trial experience, and the call to actions on the website. And Jan is going to talk to you about some of the examples we have seen with some of the companies that are trying to optimize that from the marketing side. Product, of course, this is like it plays the most important role in this sequence. And what it is, the biggest deviation from the traditional role that the product is doing is that there's been a significant effort and focus on one, creating a try before you buy experience, meaning a trial, a freemium, a sandbox that the user can reach the aha moment or the value moment, the moment that you realize this product can actually improve the way you work and your workflows really quickly in the matter of, as Jan is going to tell you, hours or days. To do that, you are start focusing significantly on onboarding and really limiting the amount of time you are spending on implementation or on learning, in essence, in the onboarding. So we've seen that a couple of companies are doing this really well. We've all experienced, for example, Slack and how easy the onboarding piece of this is. But a lot of other companies, especially the traditional sales-led companies, B2B software, are really struggling with really distilling what should be the onboarding journey and how I can get my users to value quickly. The third element that it's so critical and we're separating it out from the product is the packaging and the pricing. And the reason for this is it's because of its importance. In order to allow fast time to value, and in order to be able to have the adoption and expansion path that Jeremy said, your packaging structure that will have either tiered or user-based packages that you can land and expand, it becomes immensely critical. The second point that it becomes immensely critical and a key choice a company has to make is, will I allow a self-serve purchasing route with transparent pricing, or the alternative for the companies that do not want to do that extra route is, what type of pricing calculators will I create, ROI or pricing estimators, that will allow for my users and potential buyers to understand what is the order of magnitude of the cost of the solution. And there's a couple of companies that are doing this fantastically. For example, Elastic, that you would see that you can actually create a quote that will go directly to your sales team within minutes, and that it's actually producing you a very warm lead. The last piece is, of course, sales, because that's why we're calling it product-led sales. You cannot reach the size and the size of a company that is able to do IPO, or the size of a company that is actually to be able to optimize all of the conversion points without the introduction of sales. And we are talking about sales that become, of course, are coming in the right times to do live demos. So when they realize that we have significant mass of users in specific lines, how can I take that solution that is solving a small groups problem, and transform it in a traditional sales way to an enterprise-wide sale. And what that John is going to talk to you about later is the new introduction as we are moving away from MQLs to what we will call PQLs and PQA, so product qualified accounts, where we have when we are updating our prioritization and our lead scoring with data from product trials for freemiums and the rest. With that, before we move to the poll, we have more discussion, of course. As you can imagine, this type of elements that are coming all together to come and play in a coherent fashion requires a couple of different things. So on top of our traditional metrics that we always measure, the cost of acquisition, the LTV, of course, the growth of the product, we are seeing a lot of companies to now measure a lot of new metrics, such as trial conversion rate, conversion from free to paid, and the time to value, which in essence is the new introduction of the metrics that are co-owned between product marketing and sales, and are becoming the PLG, PLS new introduction of the metrics. With that, I want to move to the next page, and I want to start hearing from the group in the poll, which is, I am assuming a lot of you are here because you are interested in the product-led growth, and you want to think about how you would implement it in your own companies. So we want to ask your first question, and we want to ask which of these tactics will unlock most of the value from your companies. Maybe I'll give you 30 seconds to go through this, and then we can discuss. We'll give everybody 10 more seconds, and then we can close the poll. But it's interesting. As we're seeing, as I can see the results trickling in, it's quite interesting what we're seeing. The first one that everybody's suggesting is to optimize our packaging and pricing. It is one of the most important levers. And I think and Jeremy, I would love to hear your thoughts on this as well. One of the quick wins, in essence, it requires both some product changes, but it's also something that has a lot of value communication and things you can do to actually optimize quickly. And the second thing that I see as a second priority for a lot of you is the sales execution engine. I'm assuming, especially as leads are coming through your web or leads are coming through the trial, how you can actually rejiggle the sales mentality and get these leads to really start producing what the maximum benefit is. Perfect. With that, John, do you want to walk us through the next a case study that we have worked with together?
Thank you, Nina. Let me walk us through one of the real case examples of a company, a leading software company, who started its journey shifting from a more traditional sales-led approach to a more product-led approach. And the very first start, the decision is that which products we think are going to be a good fit for such a motion. And we looked at the 3 drivers: whether the product has a short time to value, meaning that whether it can prove the user that it can deliver value within days, maybe even within hours. And then the second one is whether the product has a high inherent virality, meaning that if a user adopts the product and uses it, whether they're going to promote it to their colleagues or the wider community. And then the third piece is whether they have a high network effect. And we see this with the collaborations with developer tools, that if the number of the users using the product within the organization or within the wider community increases, whether the value is high. And then once we identified the products that are good with the product-led motion, what we did is we talked to the users and buyers to understand their experiences along the journey of discovering, trying, and buying the product. And then we selected key product-led experiences, I would call, to optimize along their journey. And I will talk about one product specifically, and there are 11 product-led experiences I will say we have optimized, but I will focus 5 of them with you now. And then the first one is, which is probably one of the most critical assets for the top of the funnel, which is the main dimension engine, is the website. And the challenge with the website within a product-led motion is that traditional B2B marketing, the messaging focuses on the business value because the target persona is the buyer. But now with the product-led motion, we have a new target persona, which is the user. So we have to update our content strategy on the website with much more focus for the user, talk about the product features, what is the value an individual can get from the product. And one challenge that we observed was the main purpose of the website is to drive signups to the trial or the try before you buy model. But up until you have an up and running, or in better words, converting trial, you still want to direct the buyers to the live demo. So our main call to action was talk the sales live demo up until we have a converting trial. Once we have a trial that we know is converting well, we want the users to go to the trial. Hence, our main call to action become sign up for a trial. And then the next step, the version 2 of the website will be a website that is customized based on the visitor profile that directs buyers to the live demo or sales, but users to the trial. And then the second one I would like to talk is the optimal try before you buy model, which Nina already talked a bit on. And the challenge we observed was the key decision between freemium or a trial. And while we are building the land and expand packages for this specific product, we played with the idea of the freemium. But I think freemium is a bit harder to pull compared to trial, because with the freemium, you have to build a lighter or reduced functionality of a product that still delivers value to users, but does not deliver the value fully, leaves some value with a premise of delivering higher, so the users purchase the full product. And also there's the cost element, the freemium, that you have to incur all the flood costs with that product. So we ended up going with a trial, which is the full functionality, but for a limited time period. In this case, this is 30 days. We also experimented with 15 days as well. And the next one I would like to talk about is the product-led motion is hard to get the economics right. So the most important question in the product-led sales motion is that which accounts, which leads that you like to have your salespeople talk to. And what you need to do is traditionally you have 2 data sets to build your lead scoring model. One is the infographics of the account, and the other is the marketing behavior. But now in introduction of the trial, we have the third database, which is so valuable and insightful. This is the usage data. So what you need to do is you need to have a trial that has significant volume of usage action so that you can update your lead scoring model in a way to be much more insightful for the sales people, because now you can tell them, instead of just this is this account from this industry and with the marketing behavior, now there is this account, they have like 10 users, they have been using the product and having the value, which brings us to the next point. Because if you think about it now, the first call with the sales is completely different. In the traditional sales motion, the first call is much more a high-level discussion where you have more like a sales discussion, demonstrate the value prop of the product. But now with the product-led sales, the first discussion is not just with the buyers, but with also users who have been using the product. And the discussion becomes much more technical. And also the discussion much more focused on the specific needs of those customers. So in order to be able to have these insightful, more technical conversations, we had to update our playbook, scripts, presentations to accommodate for a change in the conversation. And the last point is the product analytics. And I think Nina already talked about this, but when we say product analytics, I think the challenge we had was not deploying the product analytics tools itself, which Panda, Amplitude, you can have them deployed. But the real challenge is driving insights from them, using that data to drive actionable insights for the teams like marketing and sales, and also integrating this data into the existing data tech stack. So you can have your sales people looking at their own systems like CRM to see what the users are doing within the trial. And as you can see, executing this, I will say, hybrid and more integrated approach can drive results in even a down market, as we experience double-digit increase in top line and new client acquisition. With that, I think acknowledging that the shift, building a new go-to-market motion requires commitment from the stakeholders. It requires funding. It requires a collaborated approach. I would like to open up and ask you, what is the biggest blocker at your company today to adopt a product-led sales or product-led growth approach?
I think this is very interesting results in terms of like we have a group that is actually would love to hear also the questions about from this group that they have actually been able to successfully implement that. And then we see a lot of where we were thinking a lot of this thing would have a lot of where things tend to fail in some of our client situations is like we don't have the buy-in, so it's much more of a side program that doesn't have enough funding, does not have enough of a prioritization either on the product, on the marketing, or teams. So I think quite interesting results. I know we have a couple of more minutes with us, so we want to really open this up to questions. And I know some of you have already asked a lot of questions on the chat, so we'd love to hear more from you. But a couple of questions that come in, and I'm gonna start by sending this pointed question to Jeremy. So Jeremy, we've heard a lot from some of the participants, but also from the market, know that a lot of the big companies acquired this PLG fast-growing companies, and then they are really moving them away from the traditional PLG side and really focusing on the sales side. We also see the drop on the valuation. Is really PLG dead and we should be just talking about the sales-led growth?
Yes, good question, Nina. And thank you for putting me on the spot. No, I think, I mean, look, I think it's true, first of all, that we do see, PE-owned companies, moving away from the sort of pure focus on PLG. And there are a number of examples of companies that have reduced investment in their PLG motion in cases. But what we see more commonly is actually, as we've described, taking elements of the PLG motion and, combining them with a sales-led go-to-market motion to drive greater efficiency through the sales cycle. I mean, I think to be honest, this was even at the height of the hype cycle around PLG, you could already see this starting to happen, and you could already see PLG, even some of the high-flying, PLG players starting to move in this direction, and we see it happening even more broadly now that companies are embracing PLG elements combined with their traditional sales motion.
Jan, I think the next one is going to come to you. And the question is, so it is great when you're product is really lends itself to this bottom-up, top-down, product-led growth, product-led sales motion. But are we talking something that broader B2B software can adopt and elements, or this is just for a few companies that can actually make trials and freemiums work for them? Is this just a niche?
No, I think when we say product led, we shouldn't think about it as almost like a binary choice whether you're just product led or not. It's more like a spectrum. So based on the product category, based on the profiles of the buyers, there's an extent you can be product led. And I think what I can say is that based on your type of the product category and then the type of file, there's something in between that you can, even you think that it's really hard to have just like a self-serve conversion without any sales touch, you can still use freemium or trial to drive demand for a lead for your sales people. So I think it's not a niche, but it's more like a strategy that almost all the B2B software companies need to adapt to some extent.
No, this is interesting, and I'm gonna answer live a question that we just got. It looks like our QR is not working. We will actually share the our article with everybody on this call, so we'll make sure everybody gets it. There is one question that I think I'll take. It's which I think it's a really common problem from a lot of the companies that are deploying it, deploying product-led growth, which is, can you get stuck in this limbo where you get all of these users, either a freemium or trial, and you're not able to convert, and the conversion rates are really low. Is it even worth it? And what are some of the tactics that you can actually deploy to improve those conversion rates? So I think there are two elements to this. First is, yes, obviously, the freemium and the trial conversion rates are low because they are supposed to be coming with a very low cost of acquisition, and then they have a lower conversion rate. So that by default makes perfect sense. The second element is like, what can you do to improve? One first thing is you have to really think through what is your try before you buy model. Is it a freemium or is it a trial? I think John hinted that depending on what is the value proposition of the product, how quickly you can actually experience value, you have to choose different selection. One of the things that is really important, and I think we saw it also in your responses, is if you choose a freemium version, you need to be able to really optimize the paywalls. The most common failure mechanism we see is that you are giving away too much value on your freemium model, that it doesn't really justify the expansion to high paying tiers. So the first thing that we would look would be, should you optimize the functionality that you're giving in freemium? And from the trial components, I think actually it is where the sales come in after this, and the sales component of the product-led sales come in. So following up with trial users in a way that you nurture the lead either automatically or through technical sales or customer support that make sure that you are actually able to get value out of the trial, where we've seen improvement in trial conversion rates. Yes, that's kind of what we're seeing. But and I want to also say that a lot of these tactics are really, really detailed, no? And I think John and Jeremy have seen it. It's never one thing that's gonna fix this motion. This flywheel is always a lot of optimization across all of the conversion points and a lot of really detailed execution targets. So I think I'm gonna send this question to Jeremy. And Jeremy, we have one of our of our attendees here is asking, how would you compare the PLS concept in software with the omni-channel sales of physical products?
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, I think it has some similarities for sure in that, with PLS, similarly to omnichannel, you're obviously seeing an orchestration across multiple avenues of, contact and interaction with the customer. In traditional products, it's often, retail and digital coming together. Here, it's often, field sales, maybe telesales, and digital all coming together, as well as the product itself. So I think the similarity is definitely there, and some of the practices, I mean, some of the unlocks, I would say, are similar in the sense that, like, in both cases, there is, in particular, a rewiring of many of the core metrics and systems in the company that are required to achieve that. I think what's a little bit unique in software, unlike in the case of omnichannel and physical product, is obviously that the product itself is such a big part of the experience, and therefore product development is brought into that flow in a way that is quite different than you'd see in omnichannel sales of physical products. And so I think that piece changes the nature of it, and changes the nature of how the teams are set up in the operating model internally, because in PLS or PLG, you have this sort of tight, integrated, cross-functional teaming between product, sales, and marketing, versus in a omnichannel situation, that teaming is typically more focused on retail and maybe the digital team. So yeah, I think interesting comparison.
Fantastic. I think we are on time and we want to be mindful. We'll share with everyone the link. Thank you so much for joining. Please do reach out for more questions and conversation on this topic. We're all very, very passionate and would love to hear about any of your questions or experiences on the topic. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.